So today I'm going to show you how to make my favorite quick, easy, down and dirty tomato sauce without even cooking. Welcome back. My name is Corinne Phillips and this is Fresh Pea Cooks. Now, growing up in the United States and having all of my formative pizza memories from childhood be from very American style pizzerias, not the real deal, not even close, where they'll take Italian seasoning or rosemary and basil and oregano and all of these spices and overly spice the sauce. And that flavor, while distinctly American, it's not the harmony, it's not the purity of a really fresh, really delicious, simple tomato sauce. So the secret to this sauce is it's a sauce you can use year-round. Are really high quality canned, preferably Italian, San Marzano tomatoes, but any really high quality good paste tomato will do. You can often find the best, most flavorful ones generally are from Italy, but I grow San Marzanos in my garden. So these are whole plum tomatoes. And so I'm going to use mine. But there are a couple brands that I really like. There's some really delicious brands straight out of Italy that are canned in cans, but with the lining on the cans and tomatoes being so acidic, they're one food that when I'm going to buy them, I strictly buy them in glass if they're available. And this Tuscany brand is really good. They're canned in a really thick sauce. So you can actually just take these straight away, smash them up with your hands, and call it good. My canned tomatoes, I can them in sauce, but I don't reduce the sauce down like these guys do. So there's quite a bit of tomato water in the sauce. I'm going to go ahead and strain that out, and I'll show you why. Now, it's something that we can add back in just to get the right sauce. If you strain out a little too much or you let them go a little too long and they get too pasty. But we want to get some of that water out because we don't want soggy pizzas. So this is just a quick cheater way to do that without cooking them. And I'm usually making pizza in the summer when it's hot. So any way that I can get from turning my oven on is a bonus in the summer. Now, the ingredients in this tomato sauce are really simple. We're just going to use high quality canned plum tomatoes, salt, and quite a bit of it. The sauce is going to be slightly saltier than you would expect because the cheese has very little salt in it, really good mozzarella. And so you want to temper that mellow cheese with just a little punch and salt in your sauce. So into our strainer goes our 2 cans of tomatoes. Now I've put this in a clear glass so you can see the tomato water it's like water, but it's delicious. It's really flavorful. So if you're a Bloody Mary drinker, it makes a great Bloody Mary addition. You can also just use it in soups. So don't throw it away or just drink it. It tastes like a really subtle but beautiful tomato sauce. So this is just a nut milk bag. It's just what I have for straining. You want something a little finer than cheesecloth. If that's what you have, just use like 3 or 4 layers. You don't want any of this to be red. You don't want our actual sauce going down in there. So I'm just going to let these drain for a couple minutes, and that's just going to condense the tomatoes in the top. So while that's doing its thing, we're going to make a garlic oil. Now, this garlic oil is something that I don't add to the sauce. I actually brush it on the pizza dough first before I put sauce on. And the reason I do that is my pizza oven cooks a pizza in about 3 or 4 minutes. Traditional in Italy, they can be like 1.5 minutes in the pizza oven because they're so hot. But that's not enough time, in my opinion, to cook that garlic well. No matter how small or how pulverized it is, it always has a little bit of that raw garlic bite to me. So I like to make a garlic oil to put on my pizza and leave my sauce unadulterated. The 2 spices that I think of when I think of pizza are basil and oregano. Now these are growing in my garden. This is oregano that's gone to flower, and if you see these little bees out loving it in my garden, you'll know why I let it flower. But the flowers are just as edible and just as delicious and just as tasty as the leaves, so don't worry about that. So we're going to start by making our garlic oil, which is I just take a whole head of garlic. I'm not going to use all of this for this recipe, but I just like having it in the fridge. It lasts refrigerated for 4 or 5 days. Be careful not to keep it longer, because garlic and oil have they harbor the perfect environment for botulism. So this is not something you can crush and just put in your fridge indefinitely. It likely will last, but it's just one of those foods that can be a little dodgy. This is the garlic from my garden, and it's so fresh and so beautiful. When you cut it, it just like oozes this beautiful garlic juice. It's so fun when we get that really dry, gross garlic in June or so, right before the new crops come out. It's really a nice reprieve. Now when I smash up garlic, I always use really coarse salt. It just helps, it's like sand in there, it just helps break up the garlic. When it's pretty well smashed up and it's just a paste, go ahead and add, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 cup of oil. And you don't need to emulsify it. You can just stir in the garlic and smush it up just enough that it kind of infuses in that oil, because it's not really the garlic that I want on the pizza. It's the garlic infused olive oil. And I start this and I make the sauce when the dough is rising, when it's proofing its first time. So it gives the garlic oil a couple hours to infuse and get really yummy. Now this idea actually came from a friend of mine, Evan. He's a chef, and he showed me this, and he also made a really delicious, it was a pistachio pizza with garlic oil, and I don't remember what else is on it, but it was so good. You'll see it's starting to, the more I stir it, the thicker, and it's starting to emulsify. This is the same process for making mayonnaise, by the way, except for you don't glug this much oil in. But that looks pretty good. And so that's kind of what I'm after. I'll set this aside. Okay, now our tomatoes look perfect. We have maybe a cup of tomato water drained out of them, and that's sufficient. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in here. Get a spoon and just scrape off all of that good tomato pulp. This is the fun part. And now just smush them. And if there's any little nubs, like little hard parts, the end and stuff, just grab those and pull them out. There's going to be 4 because I did 4 tomatoes. So my perfect sauce is not blended, it's not a puree, it's a ragged sauce where there's pieces of tomato that kind of fall behind on the crust and they cook in with the cheese. And so I don't put this in a food processor because I always overprocess it. So just a couple little smashes with your hands is sufficient. Now, canned tomatoes all have various levels of salt and sodium, so taste them before you do anything. These are very, very mildly salted. So I'm going to add maybe three-quarters of a teaspoon. And I know that sounds like a lot of salt, but again, this is, consider it like a seasoning where this saltiness is making up for the cheese and any sort of toppings, vegetable toppings, or if you're using sausage or something like that that's really salty, you might want to consider that and maybe salt just a little bit less. So now, olive oil. I'm not going to add a ton of olive oil just because we have olive garlic oil, but the taste and the texture and what oil does when it mixes with the tomatoes and cheese is magic. So don't skip it. And make sure you're using a really good extra virgin olive oil, something that has flavor that you like. Just rough chop a little bit of oregano. You can also use dried oregano, which in the winter I do all of the time. And for those of you that can get Mexican oregano, I highly recommend it. It's sweeter, it's less astringent, it's a little more mild. Just a couple chops. I don't overly chop it because I like little bits, like little bursts of oregano when I'm eating my pizza. I don't like everything just to taste homogenized. So stir the oregano in. Now the oregano is going to be very green. It's going to be very prominent because it's not cooked. So keep that in mind. You also want to be cautious about fresh versus dried. Dried is so much more concentrated, obviously, and it's more potent, so use significantly less dried than I just did fresh. Now, basil is one of those amazing pizza herbs, but I don't like basil in my sauce. I don't want every one of my pizzas to taste like basil. If I'm making a margarita, I love having that fresh basil on there. But if I'm making, say, a mushroom pizza, I don't really want basil on my mushroom pizza. I just want oregano and tomatoes. So I leave this and use it as a topping rather than an ingredient in the sauce. And that's it. A simple, authentically Italian, no-cook pizza sauce. The magic of this sauce is its simplicity. Absolutely. And I think it will probably make you a convert. I know I've seen dozens of recipes online where people cook their sauce for hours and they're basically making tomato paste, which overpowers and dominates on a pizza. So this, with a little bit of fresh mozzarella, a couple leaves of fresh basil, is, to me, perfection. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And if you have questions, leave them below. If you have comments, leave them below. If you have recipe requests or you have anything that you'd like to see on future episodes of Fresh Bee Cooks, leave them below in the comments. I often get to subscribers' requests, and I love knowing what you guys are curious about. So thanks a lot. I'll see you on the next video.